All right, so let's kick it off. This is the Kubernetes storage face-to-face meeting. A lot of you are on the calls every 2 weeks or so. We'd like to get together and do face-to-face meetings every few quarters or so. The purpose of these meetings is to try to do some of the more intensive design discussions that are a lot more difficult to manage over like a 1 or 2 hour video conference. So that plus, meeting everybody face-to-face and being able to put faces to GitHub IDs is super valuable. And I'm really glad to see the turnout. Every time we have a face-to-face, the number of people continues to grow. So this is really awesome. As a reminder, this meeting is recorded and it's being currently live streamed on the Zoom, and it will be published on YouTube. Make sure you're okay with that. So the agenda for today is pretty straightforward. We're gonna do some opening remarks here. I'm gonna have put Brad on the spot if he doesn't mind. Then we're going to do a vote on topics. If you guys have been looking at the agenda document that's been shared with you, there's a section where you can add any topics that you would really like to discuss. And Michelle is creating a poll right now with those items. We'll share the poll links with you, and we'll take some time to just vote on what items you think are most worthy of discussion. And then based on the top X items, we're going to just stick them onto the schedule for discussion today and tomorrow. So today, between 10 and 12, we're going to probably do 2 or 3 items to discuss. Then we'll have lunch at 12 o'clock. We'll reconvene, and then we'll do another 2 or 3 topics. And then we'll close it up and do dinner at Cascal at 6 o'clock. So, Brad, I'll let you run through this.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Brad Childs. I work at Red Hat. I've never met you guys before. Steve Watt usually does the opening remarks. He's much more enthusiastic than you. Got stuck with it this time. Actually, it's been a while since we've had a face-to-face. I think this time Saad actually called it just to showcase his beautiful beard. But we've accomplished a lot in the first. The first quarter of 2018. We've moved our local storage API to beta, and we've had a lot of work around CSI. I think probably the core of our work has been around CSI, and it's a testament to how much we've done in the SIG itself. We've had all our features that we got in tree, now we decided we're sick of them being in tree, let's get them out and move it into CSI. There's been a couple plugins that have been developed there for the bridge, and then also the actual file system volume plugins. And then all right, so okay. Then after the CSI pieces, we've also got our mount propagation to beta. And so that doesn't seem like a big feature, but that's something that allows us to run our end-to-end tests and have a little bit better reliability and stability in our framework. Ephemeral storage, and then the request limit API. We've also been working on some volume count and some just stability checks for the basic framework. And then prevent deletion of PV binding. So this was another error thing that we, it took some re-architecture to get fixed. And then we've also been working on resizing. So all that to say, we've done a heck of a lot of work since our last face-to-face. And it's, I think we're moving faster than any of the other SIGs. But with all that to say, that was the first 80%. Now we have the last 20% where we need to go and clean up, make sure everything's tight, make sure our documents look good, make sure the tests are running, and that tends to take the majority of the time. So we've got the fun stuff done, and it's somewhat a matter of making sure that all our, our I's are crossed and our T's are dotted. And that's it for opening remarks.
All right, thanks a lot, Steve, or Brad. So I just wanted to highlight the 80-20 rule. Basically, we've got a bunch of cool features out to beta. Moving to GA, which is the last 20%, the last step, is probably going to be 80% of the effort. So we need to double down and make sure that we finish strong and we deliver high quality features. We need to realize the stuff that we ship, there are real world companies that are basically building their livelihoods on this. You've got we're basically critical infrastructure. So we need to make sure that we deliver high quality features. That includes testing, upgrade, downgrade, everything. All right, so let's go over logistics really quickly. As I mentioned earlier, this is being live streamed and it's recorded. It will be published on YouTube. I wanted to introduce our hosts at Opal, Tony and Sarah. Would you like to say a few words about the building?
Hi, I'm Sarah, and this is Tony. If you need anything today, just let us know. Just a quick note about restrooms. Men's restroom is right by the exit sign. Women's restroom upstairs is a big W on the door. For Wi-Fi, just look for the Opal signal. The password is the address, 251 Castro, lowercase c, one word, 251 Castro. For parking, all of downtown Mountain View, it says 2-hour parking. They almost never check. I parked here at 7 a.m. I'll check my car for chalk around 12. If I'm not chalked, we're all fine. I'll let you know. If I am chalked, I just go out, wipe it off. They won't chalk again. They're good all day. So don't worry about the parking. It's free. All right, enjoy the meeting.
Thank you very much. And last thing is dinner. Dinner is going to be hosted at Pascal, which is down the street. It's walkable. So hopefully you can join for that. I wanted to thank the sponsors. So VMware, huge thank you for finding this cool venue, hosting breakfast and dinner, and then thank you to Google for hosting dinner. VMware is doing breakfast and lunch. All right, so now let's move on to topics for discussion. So in the agenda document, we have a section called Topics of Interest, and there are a lot of items there. Michelle has been gracious enough to put them all into a poll. Before she hits the create button on the poll, we'll open it up to the room. If there's any last minute items that you really, really want to get in, raise your hand and we'll get that added to the poll. Operator pattern. Operator pattern. Michelle, do you have operator pattern?
EE tests.
Is E3 test not on there? I thought there was a section for testing. Yeah, there was a section for testing. You're doing one for just yeah, as long as there's one name for each test, you can just go through this testing. Okay, cool. Let's go ahead and create it, and if you click the link and so while we get the link ready for voting, we can go over what some of these items are. At a high level, we've got CSI. If folks are interested in this, some of the sub-items here are presenting what the current status is, talking about the CSI migration plan. So we've developed this cool out-of-tree thing, but we've got a bunch of in-tree volume plugins. How are we going to migrate these in-tree volume plugins out of tree? CSI and CO boundaries. This is, I'm not sure who put this in, but do you want to talk to that? All right.
I did it. Because there's some call out to CO's CSI.
Okay.
All right.
We'll skip over that. Block implementation, Vlad. This is one of the big outstanding items for CSI. Snapshots, presentation on current status, CSI integration, which is currently ongoing, restore design, which was recently finalized on, and consistency groups. I'm not sure what that is. Shane?
So something, some format during the CSS snapshot.
Okay. Does anybody want to talk to consistency groups or summarize what that is? Okay, cool. We'll just skip over that then. Next up is block and local storage management. What's next for these items? Node disk manager. How does Rook discover local devices and manage them for different apps? I'm not sure whether that works with local storage, but worth talking about. Topology aware and dynamic provisioning, including local PV. Present the current status of this. This is going to be a big design, and just talk through that. Flex volume. I think this is just where we are, where we're going. If anybody's interested in that discussion. Volume resizing. We've got Hemant here to present on the current status and what's next there. The feature is currently alpha and hopefully going to beta soon. Metrics and monitoring, something that the SIG is focused on for a while. I don't think we're in a place where we're completely happy with the current state of the metrics, being able to figure out what's happening with this volume subsystem. So discussions around that. Testing, what we can do to improve testing and coverage. I think in the past release, what we discovered is that our testing is still, despite the massive effort of Aaron Boyd and her team over the last year, there's still a lot of tests that are missing because of the absolutely massive surface area that we have for volume plugins. Specifically, I think Michelle discovered that the subpath feature had basically 0 tests. And so when there was a security vulnerability discovered in that feature and the feature had to be rewritten, there were tons of regressions that happened because the tests weren't there, despite Michelle adding tons and tons of new tests while she worked on the vulnerability. So there's definitely room to improve testing.
Where's that one not running? We wouldn't have the hardware to run it.
Yeah, for a lot of the entry level plugins, we have no way to actually test them. So we can talk about testing and then miscellaneous topics, breaking up external storage. So we've got this external storage repo that kind of is a bag of miscellaneous things, including external provisioner, snapshot controller. It's not very well managed. It's a single repo that has a bunch of stuff in it, so you can't really cut releases off of it. And we'd like to break it up into something more sane. So discussion about that. New contributor onboarding experience. So if you guys have been watching the SIG mailing list, Aaron Boyd's organized an effort to create videos for new folks that are joining the community and how they can get involved. We can get an update there. Building a storage system that consumes, block, and exposes files.
I'm not sure where that came from.
Who added this?
We already do this.
Yeah, we do file on block. Maybe this is calling out that maybe we should make file on block explicit in our API. So currently we allow volume plugins to expose block or file, and implicitly a lot of volume plugins like GCPD and AWS will do file on block, but our API doesn't explicitly say that. And this becomes challenging. Michelle brought this up the other day for things like secure containers, where you want some component inside the secure container to actually handle the mounting and making available the volume plugin. If we were to do that for file on block, if we expose the block device inside the container, somehow the component inside the container needs to know that it needs to apply file on top of that. And so we need to have some mechanism to be able to describe that in the API. I'm not sure if that's what this is referencing, but that's what I'll claim it is.
I'll make it topic.
Volume backups. So I think folks have pointed out that snapshots are not necessarily backups, and backups are a whole different beast. We can talk about whether that makes sense within the Kubernetes API. And importing pre-existing volumes into the cluster. So you've got, clusters on-prem, you've got clusters in the cloud. How do you actually migrate data around? I think this is one of the biggest challenges a lot of companies with hybrid cloud and on-prem solution space is how do they make their data available where they're actually running their workloads? Is there anything that this SIG can do to help with that? So a very long list of topics. Michelle, how are we doing on the poll?
I couldn't add the last one.
Okay, no worries. All right, we'll keep that as a one-off topic.
So did you say something about the operator pattern, or exactly what we're interested in?
Yeah, so the operator pattern, do you want to talk about this, Brad?
Yeah, so there's as I'm sure you're aware, CoreOS launches Red Hat or vice versa. So they have an operator library that was closed source that we announced that we were going to open source at Red Hat Summit. And there's been a push within Red Hat to use that pattern for various things, and it could be useful or could not be useful for the storage pieces. So I wanted to discuss if we want to move some of our external storage libraries to operator or to the CoreOS library, or if we want to leave them how they are, or what people think. Is there questions about it? I mean, I haven't dug into the code myself. I mean, I know the concepts. I know, what's been published out there as far as how it works and what actually is there.
I was just curious whether we had something in the external storage repo that you think would fit well as an operator.
Not yet, but there's some monitoring stuff that's come up on this. We talk about.
Yeah, when I was at CoreOS, I looked at storage and operator pattern, and the project came out was called Watermaster. So if you want to see something that manages storage and uses the operator pattern, that's functional.
Yeah, I mean, beyond just any specific operator library, the general idea with operators is working at a higher level on top of Kubernetes. So we expose these cool primitives with PVCs, storage classes, and all this stuff within our SIG storage layer. But anybody who's actually tried to run a real stateful service on top of this realizes that there's a lot more to it, right? When you have shards and striping of data across multiple nodes, how do you actually do upgrades and downgrades at that level, right? You can't just take up and pull down your stateful set. You need some component that's sitting on top, an operator that will manage that. So there's tons of different operators that exist for different types of stateful workloads. It sounds like CoreOS has libraries that kind of make that writing operators easier. And I think Brad was mentioning it can be applied even to things like deploying new CSI and calling it. So a lot of interesting work there. We can talk about whether that's within the scope of this group, whether it should be something SIGApp should be working on, kind of open-ended conversation on that. Okay. So it looks like Michelle has the link up. If you go to the agenda doc underneath topics of interest, you can find the poll junkie link. It will allow you to rank the items in whatever order you prefer. Sure. I don't know if you can modify the poll at this point, Michelle.
I can't modify this already.
Okay. All right. No worries. All right. So go ahead and start voting. We'll give it like 5 or 10 minutes, and then we'll look at the results, and we'll put it onto the agenda based on whatever's top voted first, and then hopefully we come up with the same schedule.